a little orientation to the webinar before we get started. If you're not familiar with the webinar format, basically a little bit differently than a typical Zoom, you're not able to see everybody on the call. And because of that, we set it up that way just because we were anticipating a large number of folks. So just to give you a little orientation, if there is something that you do want to say at some point, and you would ask that you wait until after the main presentation or the panelists ask for comments, you do have the option to raise your hand. If you do that, we can see you and then make sure that we call on you. Also, we would encourage you to use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen for writing questions as we go along or when specific feedback is asked for. We would ask that people not use the chat if possible, just because that gets to be distracting and there's side conversations going on in there, as opposed to with the Q&A, we can kind of gather specific themes and try and address those as part of the presentation. So I think that's about it. Only other thing to let you know is we are going to be recording the presentation, just so everyone's aware. And with that, I'll go ahead and make it available to Thomas there.
Thank you, Sharon. Also, to continue on that about the Q&A and asking questions and giving comments and stuff, is our intention to gather those and to put them in a written format so that other people with those same questions that may come around later on can reference those on our webpage. And it's unlikely that we have a chance to answer all questions tonight. And so we just want to make sure that people are heard and that they get their questions answered. It just may not all happen tonight. So with that, we will just get on with the presentation. My name is Thomas Hartzell. I'm a senior park planner with Snohomish County Parks. And we will be hearing a presentation by Mike Faulkner with Bruce Thies and Associates, Landscape Architecture, and Lauren Kramer with Kramer One Architecture. And with that, I'll get into a little bit of a history about this shooting park. It's gone by a couple other titles over the last 45 years, at least 45 years. But I'm going to focus mainly on the past 5 years in this brief history. We were reconveyed approximately 140 acres by DNR that is on the Salton Basin Road. Approximately 5 years ago, when we started the process to come up with a master plan for that property as a shooting park, it was found to be unsuitable due primarily to large high quality wetlands which were located in the center of the site. So it was pretty much an unsuitable site. A new site was identified as in kind of a partnership with DNR. They kind of pointed us to a much more suitable site that is actually a full square of 640 acres. And it's across the road from the existing property that was originally supposed to be used. That has been evaluated for ecological suitability. It's topographically complementary with good access, and it's hydrologically superior, just in the direction that the water would flow on that site. That property is still actually currently in DNR ownership, but it is their intention to reconvey it immediately following logging, which would be early 2024 is what's projected at this point. And there would actually be an exchange. They would take back the previous property and give us the new 640 acre piece. The county's vision and goals for this park is, first of all, to provide a safe, clean, and accessible shooting facility for the general public. It needs to be self-supporting And we're looking at doing it as a public-private partnership, as it's not one of the county's core competencies to run a shooting facility. It would be ran by a partner, similar to the way the Evergreen Speedway is ran on the fairgrounds here in Monroe. It needs to have some local economic benefits and be suitable for tournaments and competitions. It also needs to have a flexibility of space for other recreational uses and events that may come about on occasion. And as a sidebar, this is also the highest priority for parks that for Executive Dave Summers. So he sees this as a very important project. And with that, I will hand over the reins to Mike Faulkner of Bruce Dees and Associates.
Sure. So, hey everybody. So yeah, we've been helping out Snohomish County and working closely with Lauren Kramer here from Kramer One, who's sort of a national shooting range expert. And as part of this process, we have been working with the ad hoc committee that Snohomish County Parks had put together. This slide here shows a little bit about representatives from Snohomish County, as well as the various shooting sport representatives that we've been working with during the development of this plan. And then we've also been fortunate to have a number of community representatives inform us about their kind of goals, desires, and concerns throughout the process as well. So we're the consultant team again, Bruce Dees and Associates, working with Kramer One, and then we'll just jump right into where we are with the master planning. So throughout this, we will go over the project process and schedule. Then we will clue you into all of the background information that we've gathered regarding the site. And then Lauren will give us an update regarding all the various shooting range layouts and the planning process that's gone into those. And then we will kind of show you where we are now with the current site plan development. So project process and schedule. So we have done our due diligence as Thomas Hartzell was talking about regarding the site. So we do have quite a bit of background information and data regarding the site. We have taken that information as well as the initial program for the shooting park and tested that on the site, gone through a number of different layouts. And then that's taken us to where we are currently in developing the preliminary master plan. So to get to this point, we have had 3 ad hoc meetings up to this point with all the various representatives from the community and the shooting sports. And then that's gotten us to where we are today with the public meeting. So we'll be looking forward to all your comments and responses and feedback. And we'll take that all into deep consideration as we work towards finalizing that preliminary master plan, which will then go to a rough cost estimate. Then we'll be working with the county to the next steps as they look at, pursuing partnerships and looking to figure out the phasing for the park prior to getting into developing a final master plan and report. Once that is developed and approved, that would form the basis for creating construction documents, which will then go through the permitting process with the required agencies. And after that point, the project would go out to bid to various contractors. A contractor would be selected, and then construction for the first phase would occur. We are thinking this will be a phased project. It's unlikely it all gets built at once. So then let's jump to some of the site background information. So we do have a great site that is currently DNR land and slated to be logged. It is relatively remote to the northeast of Sultan, just past Lake Kellogg along Sultan Mason Road. Then taking a closer look at the site, we can see we do have beneficial topography, which is one of the main reasons that makes this a great site for a shooting park. we have a large ridge on the northeast corner of the site that will provide a great safety backdrop for the shooting park. Then we do have a series of wetlands and streams kind of along the south edge and southeast edge of the site, which we need to be cognizant and aware of and protect. But within the middle of the site, you can see here, we do have a nice, relatively flat area for development of the park that we can situate to face the ridge that provides that great safety backdrop. Then just quickly, the soils of the site, we do have good, well-draining gravelly soils throughout this area we were showing for development. So that will be beneficial to the project as well. Then again, just the hydrology of the site, we always are concerned about wetlands and streams. So we're going to take a very environmentally sensitive and cautious approach as we develop and construct the park to protect surrounding hydrology. In addition, there is a wellhead protection area that is outside of our site, but still we will be very cautious of any potential impact to avoid any impact to the groundwater. Then as mentioned, it is currently a DNR site, and this slide is showing the boundaries that are proposed to be logged. So within this area, we will be working with the Department of Natural Resources to try to preserve some trees where we think they may be beneficial to the project and where they can maintain some of the natural beauty of the site. Then we just have a series of photos from around the site. So here's from the top of the ridge looking south. So you can see a lot of logging has already previously occurred on this site. You can also see some of the nice panoramic views that we get from the top of the ridge. And here's some views along the west side where you can see the site is beginning to reforest itself in some of these previously logged areas. Just some more views across the site. This is old logging road here. Another old logging road here. Then this is a view looking south down Sullivan Basin Road from the existing entry point into the site. So we do have good site visibility, and we are proposing to maintain the current entry point, which will actually be improved with a new turnaround and entry gate that will further improve the site visibility. And here's just a view looking north from that entry point, and then a view looking east into the site where we'll be proposing to bring the shooting park. Then Lauren, can give us an update on the shooting range layouts and planning?
Great, thank you. My name's Lauren Kramer. I'm probably the only one on this call not from Washington State. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am licensed as a Washington State architect. I am located here in Arizona, and my business is exclusively shooting ranges. I do them all over the country. Most of them are outdoor ranges, some indoor, most are outdoor ranges. And I have master planned the largest master planned outdoor public range in America, which is actually in Clark County, Nevada. And that was a 4.5 square mile site. Starting with our program here, I'm going to make the assumption that not everyone on this call has knowledge of shooting ranges and firearms. For those of you who do, I don't mean to insult your intelligence. I'm just making the assumption that not everyone here knows all about firearms and shooting ranges. And so I'm going to make this pretty basic on this. We'll take this in alphabetical order, starting with archery. Archery would be basically bow and arrow. Program-wise, we're talking about 3 different types of ranges: target archery, broadhead archery, and 3D archery. Now, the difference between those is target archery is something like what you probably saw at summer camp, where you have a target on what in the old days would have been a straw bale, but now it's a little more sophisticated backing. And you have targets that are concentric circles, and you shoot arrows into those targets, target archery. Broadhead archery range. Broadheads are a type of arrow tip that is used for hunting. You can't use those on a regular target archery range because broadheads are a kind of a razor blade sort of arrangement, and you would destroy the targets. So they're shot into basically a bunker. And so that needs to be a separate range. 3D archery. 3D archery is built around a hunting scenario, and the targets are actually 3D man-made synthetic animals. And so you walk through a course and you get to various locations where there are various types of animals, animal-shaped targets, 3D targets, and you shoot at those as you go through the course. Then we get to pistol. I want you to understand that when it comes to pistol and rifle, there is some cross-pollination here. Handguns, or in this case, we're generically using the term pistol, are short handheld firearms, whereas rifles are firearms that have shoulder stocks to them. Some of these ranges on pistol, you theoretically could shoot rifles on, but we're grouping them together as pistol because they are shorter distance ranges, shorter length of shooting. So we actually have 5 ranges on pistol. The first 2 are competition ranges, 100-meter range and a 50-meter range. So you know, the next one you notice is 25-yard range. In competition, it's fairly common to have not only American style, but some international style competition, which uses metric. Since I'm going to not make the assumption that everyone understands the relationship between English and metric units, 3.28 feet is a meter. So meters and yards are close, but meters is a little longer than yards. So the first 2 ranges, 100-meter range and 50-meter range, those are competition ranges. And there are, I should back up a little bit and say, in the shooting sports, there are a whole variety of types of competitions. There are more than 100 different types of competitions out there. No range anywhere can accommodate all of them. We're trying to accommodate the widest variety of them that we think is practical with the site constraints that we have. What you don't want to do is the object is you want the bullet to go from the muzzle of the firearm through the target and into the impact area of the backstop. And because of the trajectory of bullets, that is, they arc and fall to the ground over time, you don't want to be shooting at close distance targets with backstops very far away. And so that's why we have a 100-meter range and a 50-meter range, because although you can theoretically shoot 50-meter targets on a 100-meter range, you probably shouldn't be shooting 25-meter or 25-yard targets on a 100-meter range. That's why we have 2. The 25-yard range is meant to be a general handgun sight-in range for recreational shooters to come out and shoot their handguns. A plinking range. Plinking is something that is commonly understood by shooters, but it is not general English language usage. So let me explain that plinking is general recreational shooting and may not necessarily involve paper targets. It could involve reactive targets, knockdown targets. In this case, a plinking range means a rimfire range. .22 caliber rimfire is the most common shot ammunition in the world today. And so this is a range where you can, a rimfire range will produce less sound than a center fire range, which would be, for example, the 25-yard range, the 50-meter range, and the 100-meter range. So if you have someone who is, say, a youngster who is learning to shoot and doesn't want to be by the concussive sound that you get from the center fire firearms, going to the shorter distance plinking range is ideal. And that was recommended by the ad hoc committee, and I think is a wonderful idea. The last one there is called action bays. All of the 4 ranges before that under pistol are ranges where you are at a fixed firing line and shoot straight ahead towards a target at some distance. Action bays involve movement and shooting. So you might shoot at a target and then move forward and shoot at another target. You might move forward again and shoot at 2 targets that are side by side. There are a whole bunch of different action events, ranging from law enforcement firearms training to cowboy action to IPSC, IDPA, NRA action. There's a whole variety of sports that work around action bays. But I did want everyone to understand that these are unique in that there is movement forward and back and laterally during the act of shooting, which does not happen on the other ranges. Then we get into rifle. The rifle ranges are longer distance ranges. In this case, both of these ranges here, the sight-in range and the competition range, are 600-yard ranges. The difference is that the competition range is set up for competition, specifically National Match Course Rifle, with targets, electronic targets, at 200, 300, and 600 yards, which are the distances that competition is shot on. We have a separate range for sight-in because one of the things that can become a real issue is if you had a competition on Saturday and closed down your rifle range for that, someone who came in to sight in their hunting rifle or to recreationally shoot rifle at longer distances, it's not going to like it if they get all the way out to the range and now they have no place to shoot because the rifle range is being used for competition. So we actually have 2 separate ranges, one that is specifically for competition and one that is for recreational shooting. That would be the sight-in range. And then for shotgun, so that you know, is that shotgun events, these shotgun events are all what's called clays events. They involve shooting at a disc, kind of a frisbee-shaped disc made called clays. It's actually a composition of pitch and some other things. You shoot the shot from the shotgun. Shotguns use a bunch of pellets in it instead of a single projectile like rifle and pistol does. You shoot the shot from the shotgun shell at these clay discs as they fly through the air and try to break those clay discs. We have 3 different types of clays facilities. We have American trap, American skeet, and 5-stand sporting clays. And I'm going to try and briefly describe how those work. American trap involves you standing in one of 5 different locations and having a small building that is downrange of you that flings the clay targets downrange, and then you shoot at those and you move from one position to the next position. You have 5 positions to shoot from, and by the time you're done, you will have shot at 25 of these clay targets and hopefully have broken most of them. American skeet is different in that American skeet involves two machines, one left side, one right side. One is called a high house and it's elevated, and one's called a low house and it's lower. And the targets are unlike trap, where you're not exactly sure of what the path the clay pigeon will take. And American skeet is the path is uniformly directed. You have a different path of travel. You have 8 different stations that you go from. And some of those stations, you'll actually get 2 targets, one from the high house and one from the low house. Like trap, there are 25 targets total that will be presented to you. There's American trap, American skeet. There is also international trap and international skeet, which is common and popular in other parts of the world, but like metric, not particularly popular here. And so consequently, we didn't feel that we would have sufficient call to justify taking up the real estate for international style. The last one there is 5-stand sporting clays. In the sporting clays world, there are 2 kinds of sporting clays. There's a field course sporting clays, and there's a 5-stand sporting clays. We don't have enough real estate for field course sporting clays. That would be played much like golf is, where you go to a location and shoot your shotgun instead of hitting your golf ball, and then move to a completely different location and shoot again. In 5-stand, it's overlaid over a field that looks a lot like an American skeet field, and you just have a lot of machines, generally 6 to 8, and they present the clays in a variety of directions, and there are specialized clays, some that roll on the ground, some that pop straight up in the air. It's a fairly new sport, or I guess I should say, it's a newer sport than American trap or American skeet, which predate everyone on this call. 5-stand has become very popular and is particularly popular with the hunting crowd because it presents all kinds of wacky presentations, much more like game actually does. And also under shotgun, shotgun is the sort of sport that from a programming standpoint, pretty much demands that we have some sort of clubhouse associated with shotgun. On the associated park facilities, we believe we need a caretaker's residence. The primary reason for the caretaker's residence is to make sure that after hours, there's someone to secure the site, not just for theft reasons, but also to make sure that after hours shooting is not occurring because there's no one there to kick people off the site. The RV camping, this is not a full campground. The RV camping that we have in the program is just a few spaces so that when we have a match directors have a place to camp out while they're conducting the match. We also felt that we needed some sort of pro shop education center. And so, you know, the intention of this pro shop education center is that this would be something for dinners and receptions, firearms education courses. This is kind of like command central for the entire site. On the hunter education course, so everyone knows is Washington State, like every other state in the United States, has a hunter education program. Hunter education programs have been around in this country for a long time. And what a hunter education course is, you go in the classroom and you learn the gun safety things that you're supposed to be doing. The hunter education course is a trail where you can demonstrate the skills you learned in the classroom. It's a hands-on approach. And then we've also listed some other items there. Mike, if you could go on to the next site here, the next slide here. So on target archery, we're actually going to have 2 target archery ranges. We'll explain when we get into that. And we've talked about broadhead and 3D archeries. Next slide, please. What we did here is we did some templates. These templates on these slides may not necessarily mean a bunch here, but when we get to looking at the site plan, you'll see how all of these fit. These templates are meant to describe the spatial, the features and the spatial area that is taken up by these. So one of the things then in all of the shooting sports is safety is a huge concern. Note on both of these diagrams, the target archery and the broadhead range, that we have a dashed line. The dashed line comes from the organizing body of the sport, describes a safety limit that you're supposed to keep personnel out of. So this would be an area that we would designate by fencing and signage to keep people out of those locations. On the target archery range, you'll see that we actually have 2, and you'll notice in the dimension note there is that there are 2 different widths. The shorter one is going to be shown in the drawing is 300 feet wide, and the longer one is actually 1,500 feet wide for the competition target archery range. And the broadhead range, it's a 70-yard broadhead range. 1 person shoots at a time on a broadhead range, so you just adjust forward and back. You don't have to shoot at 70 yards. You can shoot closer, 70 yards being the maximum. And if you could go to the next slide, please. On pistol, we've talked about the 5 ranges and what those are. And if you could go to the next slide. Here we've integrated all 5 of those ranges, and I'll start on the left and work our way to the right. On the left there, we have our 100-meter range there. You notice that, so everyone understands, we're shooting up towards the top of the sheet. So the firing line on all of these ranges is towards the bottom of the sheet, and we are shooting towards the top of the sheet. So 100-meter rifle range, you'll notice that we have a variety of target distances, 50-yard, 50-meter, 100-yard, 100-meter. This could be used for small bore rifle, not just for pistol. The next range over is the 50-meter range. The 50-meter range there has got targets at 50 meters and 50 yards and 25 yards. That's a slightly shorter distance. You'll notice that these ranges are, as we're shooting from a covered firing line on all of these ranges, and we're shooting towards an earth backstop. We'll have a section coming up to show you what that kind of looks like. The next range over is the 25-yard range. Now in the 25-yard range, that's the general pistol recreational shooting sight-in range. The next range over is the plinking range. That's the rimfire range. So similar to the 25-yard range, but now this is for rimfire only on that location. And then to the right of that, we have our action bays. We've got 2 action bays going to 100 yards. And the rest of the action bays there, I believe that's 7. Those are 50-yard action bays. The 100-yard action bays, when you start talking about, the action bays can be used for rifle too, and for shotgun for that matter. The rifle is going to want the longer distance, but the lion's share are generally shot at the shorter distances. And so we have 2 at 100 yards and the rest of them at 50 yards. If you could go on to the next slide, please. When I design ranges that are baffled, and I will describe what baffling is, the first thing I need to do is to draw a section through the ranges. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to use this to describe what a baffling system is. when it comes to range safety, you can use engineering controls or administrative controls or a combination of both to control your projectiles. Administrative controls would be things like safe gun handling rules, having range supervision. We're anticipating that all of these will be supervised ranges. That is, there will be range safety officers there to supervise what's going on. What the angled rectangles are on these diagrams are baffles. And if you notice, for example, on the plinking range, you'll see that there are little dashed lines going down range. We're shooting from right to left. We're shooting to an earth backstop, and those angled lines represent trajectories that are eclipsed by the baffles. Baffles are defined as something that is impenetrable to the ammunition that you're shooting on the range. And so you cannot shoot over the earth backstop and over the top of the hill and into land that's off our site with those baffles in place. If you fire from the firing line and look down range, you have what's referred to as a no blue sky situation. You can't see the sky, and so therefore you can't shoot over the mountain. That's how those work. That's an engineering control for containing projectiles and keeping them from leaving your site. This facility will have both engineering controls and administrative controls for range safety. So these are pistol range profiles that I had to do to figure out how much area was going to be taken up by each range. And if you could go on to the next slide, please. This is just some more of those same concepts through some more of the ranges. And if you go to the next slide, we get into rifle. Now, so everyone understands here, rifle and pistol over its safety baffles are what we can use as an engineering control to keep people from shooting off the site. Shotgun and archery, we don't have that same problem. We use something different because rifle and pistol, the maximum trajectory of the projectiles that we are firing is far longer than the size of the sight we have. But shotgun shot and arrows, the maximum trajectory of those projectiles is far less than what we have in the sight. And when we get to the site plan, we'll show you how we're containing those. So we've talked about the rifle range, sighting and competition. If we go to the next slide, we'll see a kind of a floor plan of that. We are shooting from right to left on this diagram. The covered firing line is right where the little hand is moving there. The lower range on the sheet is the competition range, and the competition range has targets at 200 yards, 300 yards, and 600 yards. And right next to it, above that on the sheet, is the sight-in range. It has targets at 50 yards and 100 yards that are targets that you can change as paper targets. And then beyond that, at 200 yards, 300 yards, 400 yards, 500 yards, and 600 yards, we have targets that can either be electronic targets or metal gongs. So everyone knows on the competition range, I believe I explained this, but I do want to repeat that on the competition range, we are using electronic targets. So people don't have to go downrange to score their targets. The hit on the target comes back to a monitor that is at the shooter's firing position and also displayed for spectators to see as well. So you can share your embarrassment with everyone. Next slide, please. These are profiles through the ranges, same concept as with the pistol range. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked about American trap, American skeet, and 5-stand sporting clays. And with the next slide, we'll show how those lay out. All right, so this will take a little bit of extra description because this is different from what we've seen before. The shot is going from bottom of the page towards the top of the page. So we're kind of shooting up on this. You'll notice that we have on the left 5-stand sporting clays. Then we have 2 fields that have kind of that semicircle arrangement. Those semicircle arrangement are where people shoot from. That's the walkway surface. And those are combination fields. You can shoot trap or skeet. The squares left and right of the squares to the left and right of each of the combo fields, those are the high and low houses for trap and skeet. On trap, the squares that are right below the label trap, those are the buildings for the trap fields. And you'll notice that the sidewalks there are 5 linear running fanned out sidewalk arrangements. That's where you shoot from in trap. Now you'll notice that downrange we have 2 sets of dashed lines. The furthest away dashed line is the Shopfall Zone. That is by rule book the maximum potential shot, maximum potential distance that the shot could go. So as long as that dashed line falls on our property, we don't have to worry about shot leaving our property, and we have accommodated that. The next dash in, the shorter dash, that dash is based on the area that we want to be able to reclaim shot from. That's the area where most of the shot goes. That's where we expect to find shot. So everyone knows here is that except for archery, the shotgun, the rifle, the pistol, we're primarily using ammunition that the major constituent part of the projectile or projectiles that go downrange is lead. Lead can be an environmental problem, but it is a manageable environmental problem. US EPA has published guidance on how to manage the lead on outdoor shooting ranges. Our firm was part of the publication of that document. We're familiar with that document. We use that document when we design for ranges. And one of the things that we do is the area for that shorter dashed line, we need to make sure that the storm water that is falling into that area is retained on the site. And that's the area that will be reclaimed for lead. The lead actually has a real value to it. The lead gets reclaimed and it basically gets smelted down and made into automotive car batteries. Lead is actually a fairly interesting story in that we don't do mining of lead in this country anymore, raw lead anymore, because we recycle such a high percentage of lead that we don't need to mine it anymore. We just keep using it over and over again. The lead that falls on that field actually has a real value to it. I probably should also mention that we will be also recycling lead on the rifle and pistol ranges as well. There, it gets dug out of the earth backstop, it gets screened, it goes through a process, and again, it gets sent to be smelted down for car batteries. But that's what those dashed lines are for on this diagram. And if we could go to the next slide, I think we may have gone through our ranges.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll go through where we're currently at with trying to lay all this out on the site. So here we are with our conceptual site layout. So you can start to see how we're working around some of the natural features of the site. So you can see the wetlands here, as well as the large ridge up at the northeast corner. And then the majority of the development is situating itself between those two features within the flat area of the site. We will be utilizing the current entry point into the site and bringing in a new entry drive, which will take us past the caretaker residence and the camping to a central turnaround, which will act as kind of the central organizing feature for the circulation of the site that'll allow you to go to whatever range you're headed to on that day. And then we've also provided emergency access and egress and a gate out of the northwest corner of the site in case of backups along Solden Basin Road or other emergencies. And then in addition to that, we will be fencing the perimeter of the site for safety. And then Lauren, maybe you can tell us a little more about how the different ranges are laid out the way that they are.
Sure. One of the criteria in setting up the ranges here is that we wanted to make sure that if a competition is occurring, that if you're John Q. Public coming in to do recreational shooting, that you don't wind up coming to the site and don't have a place to shoot because the only range for the event for what you're trying to do is closed for a competition. So starting with the archery is you'll notice that we have on the left there where the hand is competition target archery. As differentiated between over on the right side, we have a recreational target archery. That location for recreational target archery is of insufficient size for what the ad hoc committee felt that they needed to hold major competition target archery events. And I believe that it was important to have a situation where if you have a Saturday, Sunday archery event, that someone who's worked all week long and wants to go out and use their bow and arrow doesn't wind up finding the only archery range there is out there. They drove all the way out there and now they have to go home because they have no place to shoot. So we have a big one for competition. We have a smaller one for recreational target archery. The broadhead archery, that's the one position location there. That is not a competition range. And that sandwiches in real neatly there. And then to the south of that, 3D archery likes to have some terrain to walk around in. And so, you know, we've got a nice big broad area for that. Rifle and pistol wants to use that mountain to shoot into because that's the high element there. And we're using that to expand on the height of our backstop system there. It happens that while archery, we had the ability to mush things around in slightly different areas. When it comes right down to it, shotgun, rifle, and pistol really pretty much only fit on the site in one location, it looked like, and that's the way we have it. And so shotgun needs to be in a relatively flat area so we can reclaim the shot. And that location that we have it in is if we moved it any further north, we start running into the hill. We move it any further south, we wind up with a dead spot on the site where there's nothing really we can put in it. Rifle, we can't swap with pistol because if we do, rifle winds up with part of it in the wetlands, which we can't do. And so if we have a 600-yard rifle range, it takes up a lot of real estate. There we have it. And the pistol ranges, we get to share the hill there again. And they fit in there because they're shorter in distance and we don't have the same problem with them being too long to fit in with the wetlands area. So everything fits. Everything fits pretty neatly in there. I do want to explain about, we have some kind of green belt areas below pistol, below rifle, below shotgun, below competition archery. What those are for is we believe that during especially competition events, there will be need for a certain amount of expansion. The expansion could be anything from the need to put up tents with vendors, the need for additional parking because we've got a big event, the need for someone to park RVs or trailers. And so we've plunked great big greenbelt spaces that are general use spaces just because we know someday we might need them. Other than that, looking around the site is you notice that we've kind of centrally located the Pro Shop Education Center. I felt it was important to try and get the Pro Shop Education Center so that it was reasonably equidistant from all of the ranges, since that's where classes will be held, not at any, not favoring any one range. And also it can be used for events that have nothing to do with shooting. I mean, someone could have a wedding reception there or an anniversary party there or any of those sorts of things. And it's much more conducive to have, if you have something that is not specifically centered around the shooting sports, it makes sense for it to be kind of a standalone building out there. The other thing probably I should, I'm sorry. That's right. Mike, you actually have a slide later on that has to do with the stormwater retention. So I'm getting ahead of myself.
No worries. Yeah, I think you covered everything as far as I can tell. So
good, thank you.
Go to the next slide. So here we've overlaid that logging boundary that we showed earlier, which again is where the Department of Natural Resources is planning to log the site. And then here we are showing some of these organic green shapes in and around the different ranges to assist with screening between the ranges and to also screen from some of the primary circulation drives through the site. And we also think this will help us maintain some of the natural beauty of the site as we work towards the final plan. So then here, working with the ad hoc committee, we did find that it was desirable to have a number of the ranges lit in the late afternoon or early evening hours, especially during the winter, based on when people will be arriving and using the ranges and when they see the best opportunity to bring in revenue. So here you can see we are illuminating the shotgun range, the pistol action bays, and the recreational target archery range. Along with lighting those ranges, we will also be required to illuminate the associated parking areas as well as the entry drives into those areas. We're also looking at illuminating the parking with the Pro Shop Education Center, as that's likely to have some evening events as well. And then we will need to bring in power along Sultan Basin Road, which is currently about 1,000 feet to the south. And then power will be distributed across the site to the various ranges and support facilities. So, Lauren, anything else?
No, I think maybe the only thing is that the power, as I understand it, will be underground power, not power on poles.
Right. So then here we are. We have started to look at some of the preliminary grading and drainage as we're developing the master plan. So some of the goals here are to limit our extents of development and construction as much as possible, and to work with the natural terrain wherever we can. And then, as Lauren had mentioned, and I'll let him take over in a sec, but we will want to contain the various ranges where lead is being shot.
Yeah, so the nickel tour when it comes to lead, and feel free to, in the Q&A section, to ask questions about lead management. But the quick nickel tour of this is people sometimes get frightened about lead because they think lead as in tetraethyl lead in gasoline that has been known to contaminate groundwater through leaking fuel tanks and all of that sort of stuff. That's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with metallic bullet lead. Metallic bullet lead is generally non-soluble in water. What it does do is that fine portions of the lead will bind to fine soil particles. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the metallic bullet lead and the metallic bullet lead that is bound to soil particles, that those particles do not wash off of our site in surface water to some other location. It going into groundwater is not a real issue. It leaving the site in surface water can be an issue. And so how we deal with that is through stormwater retention or detention. And so it happens that the soil type we have out here, we believe will be conducive to retention. And so, for example, the blue area where Shotgun is, what we'll do there is we'll just make it so that the stormwater that falls in that area, that's the area that will have lead in, that it will remain in that area. So the fine particles will remain in the top 2-3 inches, at most 6 inches of soil, and the water, which water without particles, you know, the lead, again, metallic bullet lead is generally non-soluble in water. So the rainwater that falls there and water alone does not go into the groundwater and take lead with it. As long as the fine particulate stays in that area, we'll be fine on that. Then on the rifle and pistol areas is that there what we do is that the surface water that falls within the range area is that basically gets taken out through either swales or culverts and taken into retention basins. The same concept there is that we're keeping the fine particulate on our site. And then what happens with the fine particulate is when they do recycling, when they do the reclaiming of lead from the site, they take the earth out, the earth gets sorted, the lead gets taken out, put in drums, and it goes to recycling, gets smelted down, made into car batteries. And then the earth that had come out of that process goes back where it started from. So it'll go back into the backstop, or back, in the case of the Shotgun, in the lead containment area. And again, for archery, the reason why we're not showing any of this retention is archery is the one shooting sport that does not involve lead, so we don't have that issue.
Yeah, thanks. And we should state it is to our benefit to be able to control where the bullets are being shot so that they can be reclaimed. And this gives people a designated area for shooting as opposed to openly shooting out on DNR land where a lot of people are not cleaning up their bullets and their trash. So then there's just another look at the conceptual site plan, and we will pass this back over to Tom Hartzell at Snohomish County.
Okay, just because many of you kind of came on later on after we got going, I'll just kind of retouch on the county's vision and goals of this range again, and then also there's likely to be more questions and comments, and feel free to bring those up either in the question, the Q&A bar, or the chat, and we'll try to get to some of those now if we have time. Yeah. And then also those will be consolidated, and we'll give a more thorough answer if it's it's required, and then post those on our website for people to look at later on. But just to reiterate, the county's vision and goal for the site is to provide a safe, clean, and accessible shooting facility for the general public to use. This facility needs to be self-supporting, and it will be ran through a public-private partnership, not by the county parks directly. It'll be a situation similar to what the Evergreen Speedway is at the Fairgrounds in Monroe. We're trying to get local economic benefits from this, and that'll primarily be not only day-to-day casual use shooters, but also tournaments and competitions, trying to bring people in to utilize the site, but also the local businesses. And then also to have a flexibility of the space for other recreational uses and events during off times where the range would be closed for maintenance and lead recovery. So with that, I think I can open up to questions for folks, and the various people on the panel will answer as is appropriate. So, Sharon, do you have anything?
Do you want me to go ahead and read those off to you?
Sure, please.
So just to make sure people had seen, there had been a series of questions came in toward the beginning of the presentation, and those have been answered. So you should be able to see those related to just kind of timing of it, cost, those sorts of things. Two questions that haven't been addressed yet. One was excitement about the project. How can we help make this project happen? Politics, funding, public support.
All of the above. I believe there is quite a bit of excitement about this. I know that based on conversations with the DNR folks and just in-person observations, this site is already being used for shooting. Unfortunately, it's not very it's not being done in a safe or in some cases legal manner, because there's DNR does have guidelines that they need to have followed for people that use their land for shooting, and shooting's being done too close to the road, and people are leaving garbage, and there's just no control as to the direction that they're going in. So we really want to provide a place where people can shoot, that they can do it safely, cleanly, and not being obnoxious. So, but for public support, you know, it never hurt to announce your support to your county council members. And does anybody else have anything else on that? Sharon, am I missing a part on that?
I don't think so. I don't know if Tom wants to weigh in there at all. I think, one of the big challenges for this project is, finding a partner who wants to be the operator. So that's one of the things that really needs to be identified going forward. Tom, did you want to add something, it looks like?
Yeah, I just unmuted. Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Sharon. Thanks to the presenters as well. Lauren, thank you. I think you're really calm and come across almost deadpan, and yet you are the most knowledgeable person I've met on this topic in North America. So thanks again for being part of the team. And but yeah, from the standpoint of our partner agencies, so state parks, Fish and Wildlife, DNR, the Forest Service, National Forest Service, and U.S. Forest Service. All of our partners there are pretty excited about creating a shooting sports venue that is well controlled, that is accessible, that is clean and safe, because we do have a lot of shooting that just happens all over the place. And some of it is illicit, some of it does involve littering and destruction of natural areas. And so we all, I believe, I can speak for all of them, and that we are excited about the opportunity to do this. I will say that on the local political level, we tend to be split, right? There are folks that are very concerned about gun control and the utilization of guns of all types and sizes. And I think most can say that yes, a legitimate, controlled, regulated environment is probably preferable to what we have now. The other component of that clearly is there are folks that say, okay, I don't really want my county parks funding or Department of Conservation and Natural Resources now that we're surface water and ag and sustainability and everything together. I don't really want those dollars spent necessarily, you know, operating a range, funding a range, and, you know, facilitating that. And so we do have county council members as well as a lot of advocacy groups that are excited about the opportunity, but want to make sure that what we create is, you know, basically self-sustaining, that we go after grant funds to develop the site, that we go after private funding and nonprofit funding that may be supportive of this kind of activity to help develop the site. And then certainly on an ongoing basis, we'll provide a cost recovery if there are enough types of shooting sports, other events, some membership, some open shooting, some tournaments, those kind of things. If there's, you know, what many of us believe to be 5, 6, 7 different profit centers or areas that are collecting funds tied to the site, then it can be run, and several of these are run either as nonprofits or for-profits across the country, and do that without taking additional tax funds, without taking dollars from your current park system portfolio of assets. So that's the caveats. We want it to be clean. It needs to be environmentally, you know, sound. We also want to make sure that we are a good neighbor, because there are people that live near us, and what can we do to be no blue sky and mitigate noise and those kind of things. And then we want it to be, you know, self-sustaining and really a model for how do you do this in the region? How can our shooting sports be valued? And we have a long history tradition of those, and with our archery and other things. The final piece is really our sports commission and folks that tend to bring events into the region. I would say Tammy Dunn is the sports commission executive director, is very excited. And it's not just shooting sports events. There are, we have a lot of other acreage that is adjacent to this. So some of the bigger trail runs or activities like that, where, you know, if we had 500, 600, 700 parking stalls out here and ability to park additional folks on the site, maybe when there's not shooting going on, could you have the Warrior Dash or Spartan Race or those kind of events that tend to draw large crowds in our region? Outdoor recreation is a $2 billion industry just in this county. So there are outdoor recreational enthusiasts that would like a great area to park. From a self-serving standpoint, as the park system, if there are not significant things happening at the site, we are actually trying to look at Trailhead Direct and other ways of getting more cars off of US 2 and parking people at the Fair Park, Evergreen State Fairgrounds, or maybe at this site or others up and down the valley, so that we can have people then take, you know, vans or minivans or things that are loaded with 8 or 12 people or 15 people up and down US 2 and take 6, 7, 8 cars off the road on those high capacity Saturdays and Sundays during the outdoor, you know, hiking season. So we see a lot of opportunity, but certainly there are those that are concerned, and we want to work with everybody, making sure we do this right.
So Tom, to build on something that you had mentioned, there are several questions about noise control. Can someone maybe touch on that and what's being done?
Sure, there's a couple things. First of all, we are trying to get it away from the, you know, obviously the population centers. And this site is fairly far away. But also it being oriented to the north, that would be further, it's orienting the sound away from Sultan in particular, but most of the population is to the south of it. Also with the baffling, Lauren, do you have anything to contribute to this part with it?
Yeah, baffling is done primarily for safety reasons and engineering control to keep projectiles from being shot over the top of the backstop. But they are physical barriers, And because they need to be impenetrable to what you're shooting, it happens that what works best for stopping sound waves is mass, and what works best for stopping bullets is mass. And so what generally happens when you add baffles to a range is the amount of sound experienced by the outside world is less. Unfortunately, is the amount of sound experienced by the shooters on the range is more, but the shooters on the range are wearing hearing protection, and the person sitting in their lawn chair nearby is not wearing hearing protection. So yeah, the trade-off works the correct direction for us, is the barriers are not intended, baffles are not specifically intended to be something that reduces the sound pressure level, but it should reduce the sound pressure level to the surrounding area. That would be true for the rifle and pistol ranges. Shotgun is shot out in the open. It's not possible to baffle a shotgun range, so that's not applicable to shotgun. And bear in mind, archery, I've never heard someone complain about the sound pressure level from archery before.
All right, thank you. So then also there's a couple questions about traffic. One asking if there's been a traffic impact study since the new development, and then also more generally just how traffic is going to be dealt with.
A traffic study hasn't been done yet, and that would be done further on as we get closer to the development portions of this. But it will likely be done sooner rather than later, so that we don't get too far down the road. And because that may have to be taken into consideration for development.
All right, thank you. And then there's a question here, maybe this is for you, Tom. What are the likely political dynamics which may adversely affect this project's completion? I'm sorry, Tom Tigan. Which Tom? We have two Toms. I don't know, Tigan, are you there if you want to speak to that?
He's muted right now.
Yeah, he may actually be on another call. Why don't we circle back to that one when he frees up? Okay, so another question, will soil and water testing be done for lead leaching or contaminants in the surrounding or adjacent areas outside the containment areas? Checking to be sure the containment system works.
Tom, can I answer that one?
Please.
Okay, so one of the things that will wind up being done fairly early on in the design process is the EPA guidance on shooting ranges recommends that the soil pH be between 6.5 and 8.5. And at this point, the soil has not been tested. We've looked at some preliminary soil guidance, and it looks like we may need to do some soil amendments to get into the 6.5 to 8.5 range. And that's actually a fairly easy thing to do, is that it basically involves liming the soil, the right amount of lime amendment to the soil. I think the questioner was really trying to ask about monitoring wells. I would expect that during the process, people who are smarter than I about such things would make the decision as to whether monitoring wells are warranted. I will say, from my layman's perspective, on a site like this, I would think it would be very unusual for us to have conditions where contamination of groundwater is from a science standpoint, an actual concern. And I would expect that it's likely that the necessity for monitoring wells will be contraindicated, but I'm speaking from a layman's perspective, and there will be other people part of the process that will make those final determinations.
All right, thank you. And so, Tom, it looks like you're back, Tom Tigan. I'm wondering if you want to address the question about any political dynamics which could adversely affect the project completion.
Oh, well, I think those are numerous. I mean, the priority is, you know, where you have public access. Is there a site that is not costing the public a lot of money to do? There are individual enthusiasts. There are folks that use it just like we do for ball fields, or folks that love playgrounds, or folks that love swimming pools, or folks that all these different recreational elements, right? This is just another form of recreation. We build skate parks, we do a lot of things. So the biggest thing on this is, you know, is there a dynamic? Are there folks that really just don't want a lot of guns around? And clearly there are many spaces where we don't want a lot of guns around. We also have well over 100-year tradition, and certainly in our region, the people that are involved in shooting sports that love hunting, they love going out and hunting for deer or elk or wherever they might be able to do, or ducks or pheasant, or just a variety of things. Hunter education is a long-standing program here in our region. Folks have been working on this idea of a shooting sports park in Snohomish County since the late 60s. So it's been going on a long time. There are folks that have spent literally their lifetimes working towards this goal. The flip side is the county's only really been at it since the early 90s. That's when we engaged as a park system, starting in like 91, 92, and reconveyed our first property back, I think, in 2009. Found it inadequate, and that had all been designed and put together by studies in the early 90s. So clearly things change. So at this point, you know, we feel that politically there's, as long as we are not counting or costing the general public money, we're creating a recreational amenity that can serve both shooting sports as well as other opportunities, and educationally, and provide a safe, you know, controlled area, probably is a benefit. It would provide public benefit and be very usable and hopefully self-sustaining. So, you know, that's an important piece. And hey, I'm looking, I pulled up your chat. So the next one is, you know, a question about 700 acres of land being taken away from public use. Who's paying for that? I guess I'd go back to my earlier statement quickly. You know, this is a specified use. We would have a lot of other things, events and things and park stuff that could happen out there. But in general terms, yes, it would be a shooting sports park. But we do lots of specialized facilities. There are people that love trail running, and we help design those tertiary trails. There are people that love our, you know, regional trails for biking and events and exercise, and we provide those. And in this case, I mean, again, I mentioned ball fields, I mentioned pools, we build lots of recreational amenities and provide, and boat ramps and launches and all kinds of things and places to go crab. And so this is another space that, you know, we think could be valued and actually fill a niche, and could be a good opportunity for our recreation community. Yeah. Should I stop talking now, Thomas Hartzell?
Well, actually, let me go back. There was another comment to your previous question that you answered about kind of like the political aspects and, you know, what could, you know, possibly derail it. Point was made, you know, basically that council member Sam Lowe was here. He actually had to already leave, but, you know, that there is support for that way. So in the comments that a proper shooting park will support real needs in the county and produce positive economic impacts. So a thank you to Sam Lowe for participating. And then the next question, we'd actually already talked about sound issues and traffic, but a little bit broader question about, you know, if around the park, if people are not choosing to use the shooting park, basically how would the county address that issue? Does that make sense? Maybe I should read it more clearly. Surrounding areas being used by shooters who choose not to use the park, which is what happens now with the county and not addressing the issue. So I guess the question would be, if people are outside the park and still shooting, is there any kind of control over that?
Well, state law, I mean, controls a lot of it, although the county can create no shooting zones, and we have expanded those dramatically in my 14 years here, working with neighborhoods. Clearly, we're seeing a lot more of homes still developed in rural areas, outside urban growth areas, and even inside urban growth areas near cities like Sultan, lots of new homes, Monroe, lots of new homes where people traditionally have gone out for years and years to go shoot. So, yeah, we want to provide a safe place, an organized place. At the same time, you're right, we will probably be using this as a tool to say, okay, now you can't just go 4 miles from your house and start, plinking or start shooting at stuff, even though it's DNR property. We may want to work with our state agencies, our federal agencies, and talk about, okay, now that we're providing a good space, it's not, they're going to close down every little shooting pit that's out there, but I would believe that we would find some support for looking at our no shooting zones, looking at how close they are to residential areas and those kind of things, and taking some action on that. It's kind of like, I mean, honestly, this reminds me a little bit of, I started in my career in the early 80s, and we started building a lot of skate parks in the mid 80s and through the 90s because people were tired of kids riding skateboards on benches in the fronts of businesses and down Main Street and here and there. And almost every community figured out in the last 25 years that if you build a skate park, they will come, and you can also then limit illicit uses. I think we do that a lot in Parks and Recreation. We encourage appropriate places to recreate, appropriate places to do that particular activity. And at the same time, then we find ways to discourage inappropriate behavior or ones that are more at risk or are, quite honestly, more environmentally detrimental.
All right, thank you. So then there's a question about if there's a recording available of the meeting for later viewing. We are recording. Rose, maybe you could speak to what's our typical way of making the recordings available.
Sure. I think for future information about this meeting, the recording, and that question and answer in a written form, we will post everything to the Sky Valley project page, which is on our website. And I can actually put that link in the chat right now.
All right, thank you. So not a question, but a comment. This would support the businesses in the Sky Valley, including the new RV park that's being built at the roundabout. That will keep a lot of people off the Sultan Basin Road if they are staying there. Next question is there a law enforcement component included for training and or accessibility?
Right now, there's not expected to be anything like that. It's just really focused on the general public and for things such as competitions and tournaments. Law enforcement has their own facilities.
I would add to, can I add to that, Sharon, real quickly? It's Tom, sorry.
Sure.
Tom Tigan. I just that, we do know, obviously when we reconvey property, the state statute and all of that is tied to for recreational purposes. So that is what we're doing, would be reconveying this property where we're taking it on, and it's for Parks and Recreation or recreational purposes. That being said, I think if we have a non-for-profit or a for-profit that operates the range, they may well, as a third-party vendor or as a vendor, say, hey, we do have some time here, XYZ, when it's not very popular. Is there a localized agency? Is it would Snohomish County Sheriff's, let's say, come out and sight in rifles or do something at this range? Now, they do have their own pistol range. They do have their own facilities. State Patrol utilizes other facilities. Most local agencies are already doing training somewhere, and there are other gun ranges. But if it really saved the public's money and was the ability to have people in Monroe or Sultan or sheriff's deputies or Arlington or other folks come to a space, do their training, do their certifications, do those things at a lower cost than what they're paying now, then there may be an incentive to allow that kind of thing. But again, it's not going to be a core competency for us to run this site as a park system or as the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. So a third-party vendor, either for-profit or not-for-profit, would have to be engaging in those kind of conversations overall.
So Tom, maybe if I could add to that, there was a question related to the contractor. It says, so how will the managing partner contracting process select candidates and finalists? Is there a preference for a locally based partner or organization versus a statewide or national entity? So maybe just a little bit about how would we select that partner?
Yeah, we go through an RFP process. You can't just, say, hey, these guys are interested in running a shooting sports park or a speedway or, a ropes course or anything. Government needs to safeguard the public trust pretty much at almost any cost, which is we don't just sign deals with folks. So there would be an RFP process. We actually annually have a very open request for proposals for anybody that's interested in working with the county, even for an adaptive use of a site. So we do have High Trek Ventures. We do have the Evergreen Speedway, which is operated by an outside vendor. We have others. We have disc golf. We have other spaces. We have nonprofits that actually come in and maintain and line and do ball fields in certain areas of the county where it's more cost effective for them to do that, and it's the player base, and so they can answer RFPs. And that an RFP is a request for proposals. An RFQ is a request for qualifications. So there are times when we do one or both of those related to outside agencies or partners or people wanting to run it. There are places where you can also have other government agencies that say, this is a very big benefit to us. We want to see this. We have not done that in this county, but I have seen that happen in some other states and other regions where I worked, where Fish and Wildlife may have said, hey, we want to co-manage a site with you because we believe there's a huge benefit for XYZ, whether that's fishing access or something else, or so those things can happen as well.
All right, thank you. So a statement basically just related to the question of monitoring for water quality, saying that monitoring wells are not required by the EPA shooting range rules. So just that was added. And then last question that we have here was any impacts envisioned or planned to local heritage outdoor ranges, for example, Machias, EB Island, or Kenmore?
I know that we actually have a member of the Machias range on our ad hoc committee, and I really don't think that will be the case, because the people that are using the range are using those ranges right now, and the people that aren't, that are going out in the DNR land, they're doing that. And so what we're trying to do here is get the people that are using the DNR land in a way that's it could be better and more safely managed. We're trying to draw them to this site, and this is far enough away from those others that it's shouldn't be overlapping much with their membership area. Does anyone have anything else to add to that?
All right, so those were the last of our questions. We don't have any more open questions.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for participating, listening in, for the good questions. And again, we will. Oh, we just got another one. This facility would provide capability that almost none other formal outdoor ranges offer in this manner. So that was an observation.
And Thomas, I would just like to say I agree with that last statement. This is Tom Tigan again. I also want to thank Lauren, Mike, Bruce Dees and Associates, the team that's come together. I want to thank the whole ad hoc committee and the folks that have been involved. And there is still a long way to go on this, so we want to make sure we are responsive to citizen input and folks that live around the site. I want to make sure we're working with everyone. But we do believe that our state and our federal agency partners and our local communities are both supportive of this, want to be part of the team, want to work with us, want to help facilitate a quality shooting sports venue. And ultimately that may help us with controlling, we hope, some of the illicit shooting and other problems we have in some of our outdoor spaces, and still be very functional, still be usable, still be great for education and recreation as a whole. So thanks to everyone who participated tonight and spent time this evening out on the call. And again, our team is committed to very open, conversations about this. I believe all these community meetings are taped and available. Everything will be available on the website. You know, your questions, you should have good questions and hard questions, and we should be able to answer those. And if we can't answer those, then we'll find the answers, and we need to work through your concerns with you. So thanks again for everyone for being here. Thanks, Thomas, Sharon, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Also, just if other questions come up, don't hesitate to email me. You can find that email also on that same website or webpage for the shooting park. So with that, I think we wish you a good evening, and we'll keep in touch.